So while we're waiting for Mike to take the stage, I'll go sit on this side this time. Mike is the president of Orange Coast Title. Mike, my man.
Lance, how are you?
How are you, buddy? Good. Have a seat. So, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm doing fantastic. So, couple things. So I look at Mike in the same area that I look, or vein that I look at Ashley Dembowski with Coldwell Banker Corporate, and we're going to have Chris Sorensen come up here in a little while in the mortgage side, and of course I'm a real estate guy, and my biggest concern right now is transactions, just the pure volume. So if you guys are national, correct? I mean,
Yes.
So are you in all 50 states or?
Well, we are in all 50 states from our lender division. We are more regional from the standpoint of residential resale, which is predominantly what we're talking about here today.
Yep.
We're in 7 states in the West for residential resale.
Understood. So I'm going to quiz you a little bit. I'm assuming it's going to line up with what Ashley had said and what I know. But so where did you guys see volume-wise in 2022? From us, I mean, again, I don't want to prompt your answer, but what sort of reduction in volume? Transaction volume did you see last year?
Yeah, so 2022 was kind of a tale of 2 halves of the year, because the first half of the year was still quite robust.
Gangbusters.
And then, as changes in the market, changes in rates took place, we saw the changes in transactions happen around August. And when you look year over year, we had about a 25-30% change in transaction
25% fewer transactions year over year.
Yeah.
And that's close to Ashley was saying, again, depending upon what market you're in, and you're in all of my markets,
right,
and then some. So when you said that it was a tale of 2 halves, so when did you said August, but we certainly felt the market shift before August of 2022. So when did you start seeing things?
Well, so that's true, but from an open perspective, it happened a little bit earlier than that, but then you obviously have your inventory that continues to close, and that took place through around August. But so we probably saw our open transactions change in a dramatic fashion around May or June.
Okay. Any inside scoop of the folks that you keep close to you at Orange Coast Title on what you guys are expecting? Or what are you hoping for? I mean, is it just as simple as we just hope the Fed takes this foot off the back of our neck and we can, loosen up these rates a little bit?
Well, that's a pretty interesting question, because on an economic and a macro basis, of course, that's so. But yet we also want to make our own destiny, if you will, in terms of trying to go out and attack the marketplace. But what we've seen and what's happened so far is the low water mark for what we look at as open transactions. And the low water mark was December of last year. January of this year, we actually had a 35% increase in open transactions, and followed that up in February with about a 15% increase. But as
this past January.
This past January, this past February,
Yep.
and yet then, and that sort of was early in terms of our rise, but then we saw a little bit of a slowdown so far in March, and it's so much around how people's perceptions are, and with the news that's coming out right now, that's kind of got buyer beware and buyer wariness happening all over again.
Yeah. So your analysis lines up almost exactly with what Ashley said, and we had that slower end of the year, and we started to pick up. For us, I think we actually started to see a pickup prior to Christmas. It's probably the middle of December, and January was strong, and we got excited because we generally don't have, January is not a type of month that you normally get excited about in our business.
That's true.
Right? And frankly, February is not normally a month you get excited about. But I was like, wow, January feels pretty damn good, and I think we saw interest rates pull back, and I think their consumer felt a little more certainty that we had seen the worst, and then we started to see that spike back up, and I guess we'll figure out what's going to happen in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. That's the problem, quite honestly, right now that I see in our industry, is we had interest rates so low for so long. Who gave a rip what the Fed was doing? Other than, wow, this can't stay like this forever.
Right.
Now we've just gone from 3 to 7 in 15, 16 months. And it's just a whipsaw effect. So do you have I know what we'd like. Well, I'll tell you what I'd like. I just like some stability in rates.
Right.
Just so we can say, hey, this is where we're going to be. What's a perfect 2023 look like for you? Would you just be happy with just steady, a smaller decrease than, what did you say, Ashley? 10%, you think, unit sales? 10? What do you guys have? What are you thinking for 2023?
Well, we were originally forecasting at the end of last year to see that we were going to have a tough first half of the year, but the signs started to pull back around and have April on be a bit better in terms of what we were originally forecasting. We're seeing that is trending towards that direction, but not quite as big of a rebound as we had anticipated. So if we could have stable to maybe a 10% reduction, we'd manage accordingly from that. And that's what we're basically looking at this point.
So if we had this forecast a month ago, February 15th, would you said the same thing? And the reason I say that is I felt a lot differently than I did a month ago. I was coming off those January numbers. They felt pretty damn good. I thought, geez, man, maybe we're gonna pull it out. And it was 100% interest rate based. So as the last 30 days kind of thrown a little bit of a wet blanket on us?
Definitely. I mean, we've seen some instability again with respect to rates. The inflation numbers are not as under control as we'd like them to be, and then other events are taking place, like the banking situation that's going on right now. All of these things just add uncertainty. Whenever you have uncertainty, then you have difficulty in terms of transactions. One of the things we saw in that phenomena is we're finding that closing ratios are actually going down on our side. And
closing ratios.
Right.
Define that. What's a closing ratio?
Basically what we look at is the number of opens to the number of closed, and we're finding that as the closing ratios are going down, and that basically means that less transactions are closing.
Falling out.
They're falling out. And the reasons vary. They vary from mostly around the buyer side that are just getting cold feet and not execute on transactions.
I had an agent call me yesterday.
So I think that the buyers are indicating the same thing you're indicating too, which is that if we had this forecast 30 days ago, we would have a little bit more of a bright light around things, and now we're having a little pause in that mindset.
Right. It's interesting because I track that, and I track our fallouts for a variety of reasons. And our fallout rate, what'd you call closing ratio? Our fallout ratio was almost zero for the last several years. And I think in part because if a buyer locked in a property and they won over 37 other offers, they're going to move the world to get that deal closed. Whereas now, and then the agent called me yesterday, and it sounds like they're canceling. I don't know, Joel, if you're in the room. But I could feel in the agent's voice / the buyer's voice, I'm looking for a reason to get out. And maybe that's just what's going on in the news and the expectations. And quite honestly, on the lending side, things had changed. It was harder to qualify. Well, the rates just went up a little bit, and you weren't locked, or you were locked, but you weren't locked for that. So do you have a number for that, what your closing ratio is? I mean,
historically, resale transactions close at an 80 to 85% clip.
Yep.
And we found the last year or so that's in the low 70s. And that's a pretty big change in that regard. And then we also find the factors where we started doing more transactions where we would open them up at the listing to try to do our work on the title side earlier. And then we're seeing as listings aren't translating as fast as they used to, so that's pulling down the closing ratio as well.
Right. It's funny. Chris is coming up next. Chris, for those of you guys who are waiting for Chris, he'll be here in a few minutes. Hopefully, he's backstage getting ready to go. Thank you, Paul.
And he is, by the way.
Chris. So, and then Manfred's going to come up. And one of my knocks on, not just on that type of a world, they're always looking backwards or looking backwards. Most of us that are in the industry, I don't have to look backwards. I'm in it. I can tell you what's going on, like right now. One thing I learned about my relationship with OCT, and maybe I'm wrong, but this was my interpretation of a conversation I think I'd had with you, or maybe it was Annette, that you guys look at your numbers like daily.
Yes.
Okay? So I think if anybody wants to know what's going on in the residential real estate world, and what the trend is, you don't have to look at Case Shiller that's looking back 2-3 months, or a report that's a CPI. Call Mike at OCT, and you can say, well, this has been the daily trend for the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Or you want to know, I'll compare this Tuesday to Tuesday a year ago. I mean, do you guys really look at it that closely?
Yes, I mean, I have a series of reports for all of our operations that come to me on a daily basis.
Yep.
The thing that's my critical metrics is look at what's happening to our open orders per day. That's an indicator of two things. It's an indicator of what is the market doing, and it's also an indicator of how are we doing on terms of trying to increase our market share.
Yep.
And so we literally look at that and track that on a daily basis, and it can bring me through some ups and downs, if you will. I've had some happy days and some not so happy days.
Yeah, Mike's only 22 years old, by the way. This is what happens when you look at this data daily. But all kidding aside, is I wish that some of the decision makers and some of the stuff that the consumers would see was more real time. Because it seems as though not everything, but so much of what we see, I'm like, geez, man, yeah, that's 100% accurate from November or December. This is not what's happening today. And I think that's one of our are we going to be, Chris is going to come out in a minute. I think he's, we're not going to be in recession. Manford's going to come out. Yes, we're going to be in a recession. I don't know, maybe that's a national thing. Real estate's in a recession, guys. I mean, residential real estate in our marketplace, you can't be down, 20% in units, 30% in units, and not, I don't know if want to call it a recession, but that's a pretty significant impact.
Absolutely.
So I almost think they need to have someone like yourself, or frankly someone like myself, on speed dial that says, hey, tell us what's happening, boots on the ground, what's happening right now. So we only have a few more minutes before Chris comes up. So do you want to make a forecast? What do you see? What do you see for the rest of the year? Are you feeling? I mean, you were salespeopeople, so let's try to put that aside.
I heard you do your introduction where you talked about that you're a salesperson at heart, and I think that our company, that's how we are as well. So we've taken a look, and we tend to analyze, strategize, and then attack, right? And so I think that really what I'm looking for our companies is to have a mindset of positivity.
Yep.
Because there is a lot of information that's coming out at us right now that. And so to have that mindset of positivity, we started at the first of the year having a Monday call where we literally had all of our salespeople call in, and we talk about things that we have read that are good news, and we also talk about things that are actually working. And so with that kind of mindset, we're seeing our numbers grow, which is what I think that is something that's really important. I think we can make what we want the market to be if we put that kind of effort in.
Yeah, amen. I mean, you mentioned market share, and I don't know if I would call it a mindset of positivity. I'd like to think I'm generally a pretty positive person. But I think it needs to be more of a mindset of eyes wide open.
Right.
We can't pretend like we don't have an issue. Okay, yeah, that's an issue.
Right.
I'm going to deal with that. And how am I going to go out and crush it? I just flashed back to something Mark Dowling said. 4,000 realtor members, volume's down. We're going to lose 1% of our agent count. The thing is, if you're an active agent in this business, which I think many of you are, I don't care about the 1%. Frankly, I don't care about 65, 70% of the other agents. We all got to go out and capture market share.
Right.
You can capture more market share in a down market and individually thrive. As an industry, we might struggle a little bit and say, geez, that's rough. But as an individual agent, you got to adjust, you got to adapt, call it positivity. I call it adjust your business plan, go out and kill it. There'll be a lot of more discussion on that later. Okay, my friend, Mike, I appreciate you coming out.
Definitely appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We got Dr. Thornburg is coming up next. You can take the mic with you and head that direction. So thank you very, very much, Mike.